Please. So, hello and welcome to Series 2, Episode 10 of Holistic Emails, Email and More, a conversation with. I am your moderator, Skip Federa. And for those who don't know me, sorry, I'm not introducing myself. For those who don't know, let's do this right. Live TV. Let's try that again. I'm your moderator, Skip Federa, and I'm a professional, trust me. For those of you who are new to the show, on every episode, we showcase a different topic with a different panel of experts. And today we're talking about designing for conversion. Let me get here we go. Designing for conversion. Now, as you know, this is really your show. We bring together the panel of experts, but it's your questions that drive the conversation. It's unscripted, clearly unrehearsed, and generally a whole lot of fun. So I managed to kick off a fair amount of debate when promoting this episode when I suggested, well, I didn't so much suggest as flat out said, that marketers should not worry about things like opens and should focus on the only metric that matters, conversions. And I equated conversions with sales, which didn't sit well with a lot of people. So we're going to get into all of that today, as long as that's what you want to get into. Please enter your burning questions into the Q&A tab on the left, right-hand side of the screen. And feel free to use the chat for everything else, like chatting. In fact, so our panelists know who we have with us today, go into the chat now. The chat's over there. And tell us where you are and tell us whether you're B2B, B2C, NFP, or some other three-letter acronym. I hope it's not NSA or CIA.
MIA, right?
Dallas, Texas,
so
OMG.
One of our sponsors straight in there with OMG.
Is that Ryan?
Where is
Yeah.
I think I'm the only one that doesn't know what a chat is, my friends.
Juliana, or Juliana, maybe, perhaps. Where in Virginia are you? So we got North Carolina. Oh, we're in North Carolina, too. We got Chicago. We got Richmond. I'm from Richmond.
Lots of people in the States. Wow, where's the UK people?
You're going to have to come to the panel afterwards. We'll talk about Richmond. Or we can talk about designing for conversions. We can do all kinds of things. All right. Anyway.
Yay, Kent.
So clearly the chat works. Right. So, like with all things email marketing, some of your questions could be very specific to your situation or quite complicated. So don't worry, today's speakers will be happy to answer your questions at our roundtable discussions later. And excitingly, we're also going to be joined by two experts, Jessica Hooper from Iterable and Anita, wait, hang on, I'm going to get this right. Anita Pankania from Validity. I've been working on that all morning. So be sure to pull up a chair, turn on your camera, plug in your mic, and join us for a much more informal chat. In addition to chatting with our amazing speakers, one lucky roundtable participant will win a Kindle copy of Kath Pay's best-selling book, Holistic Email Marketing. So join us afterwards for all of that. Also, before we go any further, I really should take some time to thank all of our sponsors. This series is brought to you by our gold sponsors, Iterable and Validity, and our silver sponsors, RPE Origin and Email Expert. Thank you all for everything you've done to help bring this series to life. Now, if you want to go back and catch up on any of our great episodes from Series 1, or you missed out any of the episodes from Series 2, they're all available on the Holistic Email site or on the YouTube channel, and I'll put a link to that in the chat just now. So go and check out any of those previous series. Loads of great content, loads of great speakers, loads of great conversations. Now, we've put together a brilliant panel today. There they are. To discuss how we should be designing our emails to maximize conversions. With me, as always, is best-selling author and award-winning thought leader Kath Pay of Holistic Email Marketing, and she's brought her colleague, Adi Olasol. We also have Christina Hagapian from Hagapian Inc. and Jordi Van, wow, that's the one I got wrong, the one I've known the longest, Jordi Van Rijn of Email Monday. It's going to be a long one. Right. Okay. All right. So while everybody's getting their questions into the Q&A section, I'm going to let our speakers quickly introduce themselves. Adiola, why don't you start?
Oh, hi. I don't know why I'm so caught off guard. I should be used to this. So I'm Adiola. I'm actually one of the senior consultants at Holistic Email Marketing. So I work with our wonderful best-selling author, Kath, and I'm looking forward to being on the other side of these panels once again to kind of shed some light on my thoughts on Skip's very controversial focus on conversions and not necessarily the open. So I'm really looking forward to today's chat, and I can't wait to oh, Yordi, what's so funny?
I'll come to it later. Finish your introduction. I mean,
so yeah, I can't wait to. It feels like it's going to be a very fun panel today. So I'm really looking forward to the conversations.
Cool. Thank you, Adiola. Christina?
I'm Christina Hagopian. I am the creative director and president of Hagopian Inc. We are a branding and design company first, and I say I'm an accidental email expert because it really happened over time working in e-commerce, and our web clients just needed email, and we became experts accidentally over time, like I said. But I've learned email through my clients and through their challenges, and over the years have brought on incredible partners like Kath for strategy, and I'm thrilled to be here and be part of the conversation.
Excellent. Yordi?
yes. Tell me what you want to know, Skip.
Just give us 30 seconds on who you are, what you do.
So, email marketing is something I really love. I'm enthusiastic about it. And maybe that's because I've been doing that for such a long time, like 13 plus years. And then I just stopped counting after that. Of course, around the time also came marketing automation. And I do a lot of vendor selection. So that means like which tools would you need which would perfectly fit your team and your company, etc. So vendor selections. My company is called Email Monday, and it's basically me. And I also run a site called Email Vendor Selection. So that's it in a nutshell.
Cool.
Any other questions about me?
Well, I'm sure we'll get to some questions. Don't worry. That's later. And Kath.
Hey, yeah, I'm Kath. As Skip said, I've authored a book, and I'm CEO of Holistic Email Marketing, and we are a boutique consultancy. And yes, I've had the pleasure of working with everyone here. So yeah, which is really, really nice. So these are sort of, we are a boutique in that we are very small. And then we also, as Christina does, she also lends herself out, and we help them as well. So it's great. We tend to be very focused on delivering strategy, and that really is our very big passion as far as email marketing goes. And I am really excited about this particular conversation, because it's very, very dear to my heart. But then I think I say that about most of them, don't I?
That's pretty much always my cue to ask the first question. So I don't know, panelists, I don't know if you've had a chance to look. We've got a nice, good split of B2B and B2C from all over the world, which is great, which is really quite exciting. But just keep that in mind. Make sure you don't ignore the B2B folks, because we, as a B2B person myself, we frequently feel ignored.
So Skip, this is a good time to actually plug the next one. Remember what B2B and B2C can learn from each other.
B2B and B2C can learn from each other, and that's what we'll be talking about in 2 weeks. But before we get to that, and no pressure, Christina, but apparently, according to David Drucker, you are a great resource. So
He's my number one fan, and I'm thrilled to have him on here. And thank you.
Cool. Okay, so let's start with the elephant in the room, which is, as usual, me. And I know Adiola wants to get into this, so I'm ready. But as I said earlier, I promoted this event on LinkedIn with a David Ogilvy quote, which was, "We sell or else." And the point I was trying to make is that revenue is really the only metric that counts in business. If as a business, if you're not generating revenue, all the other metrics are really pointless. All the other metrics are process metrics that allow you how to manage the process from lead to purchase, but they don't generate any money. Ultimately, they don't pay your salary. That was the point I was trying to make. But a lot of people took exception to that and pointed out that not all conversions lead to revenue. So Adiola, I'm going to throw this one to you first, because you said you wanted to get into it.
I mean, I was just being enthusiastic for the show, not.
Okay.
You didn't mean it.
Well,
Yeah, right.
Whoever wants to go first. What are your thoughts on this, though?
On your comments on.
Yeah.
Well, do you know what? As you were saying it, I felt like I agreed to an extent. I actually agree, because at the end of the day, even you have all your different KPIs, but the actual goal for most businesses anyway is revenue. And so it is about finding ways to optimize your campaigns to drive the revenue. And as marketers, I do feel like at times we get so stuck on the number of opens. We need to make sure that the number of opens have exceeded a certain limit, and can we beat week on week? Can we beat year on year? But then potentially the conversions are more or less level with the previous year, or just maybe up by a couple percentage points. And so as long as, in their minds, I would say, as long as the revenue, if their targets are not that high, or they haven't kind of inflated with the growth of the business, and they feel like they're kind of just chugging along, then everything is good. But actually, it is about maximizing the amount of revenue that you can attain from your campaigns. So how can you do that? What levers can you pull? Let's not focus on the masses that open the email, because at the end of the day, it's always just that small percentage that actually go on to convert. And those are the ones that you really want to be focusing on. It's the actions and the behaviors from those people that do go on to convert that we need to start learning from and leveraging and optimizing our campaigns, so that we can start cultivating that conversion behavior, so to say. So I agree with you. I think revenue first, but it's almost like chicken and egg, because you feel like, well, you have to get them to open in order to get to the point of actually having the revenue come in. So where do you actually put all your weighting? Where do you focus your energies and priorities? So I will just leave it there.
What do you really think?
So I kind of pointed out in that LinkedIn post, Skip, about I was one of the ones that said not everything. But I qualified that by saying you always start with your business goal, and your business goal is obviously to make revenue, right? So everything does end up being about revenue. Absolutely. But then when we're talking about breaking it down on a campaign or program basis, each of those will have their own specific objectives. Some of them may be for revenue, but some of them may be for nurturing or warming or onboarding or, some sort of lead, generation or lead nurturing activity. And therefore you won't be actually measuring the result in revenue. You'll be measuring it by the specific objective that is set by that, that particular program or email campaign is trying to achieve, which of course should all be a contributing, effect or supporting that business objective. So I do agree with you, and I think you then qualified it by saying, process metrics. I think we're just talking different languages, sort of going towards it. And I'm in total agreement. And I know Adiola and I have talked about this a lot, certainly with our clients, how there is an overemphasis on open rates. So, like I said, I'm always a big advocate of actually identifying what your objective is for every single. So if it's a series, you'll have the overall objective for that series, that program, but then every single email is playing its part, and it will have its own individual objective to be achieving for that particular series, and then so it, you have to break it down, right? And then more often than not, unless you are a publisher and you're being rewarded by your advertisers on open rates doesn't really come into the picture. They're an indicator, but they're an unreliable indicator. So, for me, it's always, okay, let's go and identify what is the purpose? What's the objective? Why are we sending this campaign? And more often than not, it's not going to be talking about opens.
That's good. And I think you should repeat it like 3 times. Like, why are we sending this campaign? Why are we sending this campaign? Why are we sending this campaign? And if nobody will answer, then probably you shouldn't send it at all.
I'm not going to get the reference right, Jordi, but there's actually an author who's a business author. I want to say Malcolm Gladwell, but I probably have that wrong. Who's written a theory of 7 whys or 6 whys?
Oh yes.
And you ask why 6 times
to get to the real thing.
To get to the real answer.
I don't really agree with all of you. So partially only because business goals not the whole business is about making revenue, right? So if you look at, I think Dave Chaffee had like his 5S model. Like you can also do things to save money instead of making more money. You can do something to save money or to bring across your message or to give customer service. These are all valid business goals as well. Aside from what you can all do with email marketing, those are business goals as well. So in the end, it will be a different kind of thing, but in the base, I don't agree, but I also agree.
At the end of the day, everyone is in the business of making money. So the maybe 10-20% of those campaigns will be for nurturing, re-engagement, churn prevention, blah blah blah. But
we have here, so we shouldn't ignore B2B, right? So there's also
B2B want to make money.
So they want to make money, but they cannot make. Not all of them can have direct money-making conversion events. They might only have like getting an inquiry or getting someone in touch or getting a request, and not the whole way through to the revenue. So then you have to make like, how close can we get, right? How close can we get to helping along this person?
No, you're right, and I guess that's why we're here, designing for conversions, because the B2B conversion could be essentially the leads, but then what do they do after that to get to the golden pot?
Christina, you've been quite quiet, which probably means you've been saving up to blast us all.
Well, I it is a chicken of the egg. You can't have a conversion if they haven't opened the email, but there's certainly emails where it's pure branded content as well. And in fact, one of my largest converting emails was for Pepsi after a 5-year retainer that we had very lucky to have with them. They couldn't measure whether a lot of their emails were being sent and whether someone was going to go buy a Pepsi somewhere, because they didn't have that link to retail channels as well, unless we were sending coupons, which was rare. But the direct can we purchase wasn't being measured. But we did send an email that was just to celebrate their birthday. We collected their birthday email. It was extremely personalized. And our only call to action was for them to open it. It was highly animated, which created so much engagement. But it was to click just back to the Pepsi site, just to measure whether they were engaged and interested and thankful to be wished a happy birthday. And we got emails back from the message saying this was so fun, and
nice.
and it created an energy and it was anticipated. So sometimes having these messages where it's not about the sale, it's about the feel good message for the brand and that brand awareness and brand value. I highly appreciate those messages as well.
Yeah, and they I was just going to say they fall into what I call, the nudge effect emails, right? Right. And so at the end of the day, though, they provide an enhanced customer experience. An enhanced customer experience at the end of the day adds to, although it may not be attributed to a specific campaign, but it adds to and should increase lifetime value. Lifetime value, what does that at the end of the day, do? It increases revenue. Yeah. So they all play their part.
It's interesting, Christina. Your answer there reminded me, and this could be an urban myth, but I've heard it so many different times in so many different places that it's kind of, well, it's folklore, I guess maybe now, but Coca-Cola's marketing strategy when they launched was that every consumer would see the Coke logo 70 times a day in every market that Coke was sold, which is why if you go to any antique shop, any car boot sale or a yard sale, as we call them in America, you will find just a ton of Coke tat, right? You'll find trays and glasses and signs and napkin holders and, they could put the Coke logo on it, they did. And, ultimately, hopefully, clearly that made them money or they wouldn't have done it, but there is that attribution problem. But Christina, you touched on something else that I want to get into. And before I ask my next question, just for folks in the audience, usually we get lots of questions, a lot of interaction. So I don't have that many questions. So if you don't want this conversation just to dissolve into some sort of weird
dialogue,
kind of ad lib session, get your questions into the Q&A over there. Right. So we've talked about marketers have an objective or should have an objective when they send out an email. But sometimes your email drives other behaviors. And I want to get the panel's thoughts on this, because I had a client recently that it's a cinema chain, movie cinemas. And if they sent out an email promoting, say, James Bond, but they sold the ticket to that person for any other film, the email didn't get credit. Even though they clicked on the email, went in and booked the ticket for the other thing. Yeah. So did that email convert?
Well, it did.
Yeah.
The first person,
they're just not attributing it correctly in my books. That was a successful campaign. It just their objective, I guess it didn't convert to their objective. It did convert, but their objective was to sell tickets to the James Bond movie, and they ended up selling tickets for others. But at the end of the day, it still was a successful campaign. It would be interesting for them to understand more about it, and do we want to be adjusting accordingly? But
exactly. And maybe let's not hero James Bond. Maybe it should be the secondary message. Maybe let's start understanding what our subscribers want and what actually drives them to convert. Because I know, Kath, you've mentioned this previously, but even just sending a campaign, at best, it literally is a nudge. It's a reminder to let the subscriber know that, hey, we're here. So not always is the content within that email going to be relevant, but it's a really good reminder for that person to go and check out what you do have. So again, then the objectives, the lines become blurred because you've sent a nudge, but unfortunately, perhaps the objective of that nudge wasn't met, but it's gone on to do something completely different.
Yeah, because I sort of say it as, or explain it as, it's like a billboard. Every email that you send is like you're putting a billboard in front of that subscriber on their way to work or to the shops or something like that. They're seeing your brand, and they may not be interested in that product that you're actually advertising, but the fact that they've seen that brand then will push them on to, going in store or going to your online store or something like that. So, no, and this is where we've kind of touched on this beforehand, and maybe, Skip, we need to have one on attribution, which I know is a bit of a passion of yours as well, because attribution, I think, is sadly not dealt with correctly within email marketing. We referenced this, I think it was in the previous one, where we're talking about we're not measuring them for long enough periods. We're not actually looking at the true data. We're only looking at we're cutting it off too soon and so on. But I think we're digressing, or I am.
Ladies and gentlemen, join us for Series 3, Episode 1, where we'll be talking about attribution. Hey, look at that. I just booked us in for another series, Kath.
Wow.
Well,
it's like you have to make the trailers during the movie, right?
oh, exactly.
So the part where you're actually talking about James Bond, is it going to be launched? Yes or no? I know that in talking about cinema, I sometimes use an example of an email where they did the how do you call it, they tracked the eyes, the eye tracking of a cinema, and this was of the email where you get the confirmation that you actually made an account on the site, right? So you get back, you get some of your own information back in 2 rows, etc. And they measured it, they tracked the eyes, and you can see different things like where do people look at the longest in sort of a heat map type way? How does their eye go from one point to the other, and how long do they stay there, as well as what sort of areas of interest, so which blocks get more attention than the other. And I think that isn't done very often, but is very interesting and insightful, because you'll see that, hey, if I just take my own email and I draw some boxes about, hey, this is an area that's together, this is an area that's together, this is an area that's together, like which one of those gets the most attention, you think, right? So even if just thinking about it and just having a look and visually seeing what's the priority, and you'll probably see that at the top of the email, there's a lot of distraction, like an online version thing, or like your snippet, right? Or your secondary subject line is there, like very big, a lot of white space, all people pointing outside of the email. I think if we see the title screen of today's webinar, right? You have this very specific font, like the for the email and more, and then you have your book, and your book is facing outward. I don't know if we can. We probably can bring it back, but if you rewind all the way back, you'll see that. Can we? Yeah. So this font is very interesting in the sense that it's almost unreadable. But it has its own style. And then you have the one with the book. Let's promote Kath's book a little bit more. There's like 2 slides further. This one. So the book is pointing outwards. You see, the book is saying like, hey, just go and read the book. Just don't mind the whole webinar or the whole. And that's very often happening also in products. Also, the book is saying, this is a very big book, by the way. It's very thick. Yeah. That the products are pointing in a certain way, so your eye will follow it. Yeah, it is. This is actually, it's true. Is it actually a real product, or is this like a comp shot, as they call it?
The publishers gave it to me, so I think it's a real one.
Cool. So yeah, that was my 2 cents on where your eyes go, and that's important for conversion.
Well,
absolutely.
Let's jump into that. Thanks, Jordi. Christina, you clearly want to have some thoughts on that.
Yeah, they talk a lot about this inverted pyramid for email design, where you've got the main headline, you've got an image, and then everything's kind of like a V pointing to that CTA. And if you think about where your eye travels on a page and where the eye naturally gravitates it often comes down to that inverted pyramid, right? Like very similar to this. So if you have, and I think a lot of people are afraid of white space and afraid of breathing space and afraid of scrolling, but that is all, these are all ingredients that are needed for good design, especially for email, where it's okay to scroll and travel down to see the content and let it unveil in a really natural way. And especially if your buttons are eye-catching and there's a strong contrast with your typography between the CTA and the button color, those are all things where they will just naturally convert higher. So those are tips that we are always using in our email designs, as well as just beautifully branded content and really compelling messages.
So that's really interesting. What are the biggest myths that you regularly hear? Like, you take on a new client and you're reviewing their existing creative and you're like, why did you do this? And they said, well, yeah. So
that concept where things have to be above the fold, that old world thinking, or being afraid to scroll. I get that a lot. I also get where everything's crammed in one section, or multiple, like 100 CTAs in one email, where again, where we were saying, Jordy, is if you have to figure out what I'm trying to ask you to do, then you've already failed. If you have to guess what we're trying to have you act upon, you're done.
It's a bit of a lottery.
Right.
Just hit the screen and we'll see what happens. No, it should be really clear, and you should be directing. I'm okay with like a single secondary CTA, where, okay, if the primary isn't something they're interested, take a look at something else. But I'm not really big into those multiple menu type emails. Now what about, because go ahead, Kath. I've got it.
I was just going to say. Yeah, I was just going to say there's a design hierarchy, and I think in order to be able to accomplish that well, you need to actually, before you start creating, I know I keep on saying this, but you need to state what the objective is, and then that's going to guide what is going to be the content, the call to action, the subject line, and the design hierarchy. Where the placement is going to be, and it's the same with many websites and landing pages and everything. You often will say, oh, wow, we know that this is going to get, lots of eyeballs on it. So can we also throw this in? And can we also put that in? And can we, and everyone wants a little piece of the pie. And, you need to stay, focus. This is it. Sorry, you just show them what the objective is. This is it.
Well, so here's a live story. Here's a real story that actually happened. So there's this email marketer, and it's working with like 12 departments, and they all have product people, and the product people all want their own product and their own content, etc., inside the newsletter, and they all want it at the top spot. And there's basically no one that's saying yes or no one is saying no. It's sort of like a trying to keep the people happy type thing going on. And at a certain point, I'm asking, like, okay, what are we optimizing this email for? And there was no answer. And I think that's very, very common. If you have a lot of different branches or different people who want to have different objectives inside the email, they all want their own content, their own product, etc., promoted. Then, as either the overseeing marketing manager or the email marketer, it's your task to define what is important or how you're going to approach this. Because if you cannot say we're optimizing for this one or this, then basically you don't have that clarity as to what you're trying to do, right?
Yeah.
But is that a design problem, or is that a segmentation problem? Because going back to Kath's point with the landing page, a lot of people are going to see this landing page and we want to chuck everything at it.
Yeah.
A lot of people are going to see it.
It's a prioritization problem. So which is more important than the other? Even you can fix some things with segmentation, by excluding. So there's more room for the others, but still everybody wants their stuff at the top. So you have to have some kind of regulation, like what are we going to do? Is the most popular one going to appear more? Does it have like a rotation, or are we going for X this month and Y that month? But there has to be a choice somewhere. And
in some instances, the segmentation does fix to a degree that issue, because you have the dynamic content, so everyone will always be at the top.
And no one also.
Everyone and no one will always be at the top with dynamic content. But then that's also a pain in the bum to implement, because it's a manual thing that you have to update every single time. If the product team have, a different agenda, a different product, a different objective, that content has to be updated. So I guess, it's like a chicken and egg again, it's the prioritization, but also using the tech that you have available to help make those design challenges less of a challenge. That was me.
So we've got a great question in from Carl, who I'm already predisposed to like, because Carl agreed that yes, the Star Wars film ticket sale counted, even though the emails for Bond. But Carl's question is, this is a good one. Is it better to optimize for the click in the email and let the landing page do the heavy lifting for the sale, or try to optimize for the sale right there in the email?
Okay. Okay, I've got very strong thoughts on this, which have all been evidenced, obviously. But email, its purpose is to drive you to the landing page, and the landing page has to do the heavy lifting. That's what it's there for. It's actually the one that does all the conversions. You have to whet their appetite, put enough information in there to stimulate them to want to actually to do the click. And then we've got to keep this in mind, right? We're talking two different channels. Email's a push channel, which means that we're pushing our messages to them. So that often means that they've not requested it, or in fact, they've obviously signed up giving you permission, but they've not requested information about that particular thing, right? So what that therefore means is that you have to work a little bit harder. So, that's why I'm talking about whetting their appetite. But it also means that because it's an incredibly busy channel, so it means that there's lots of emails that are coming in all the time. One's from your mother, one's from your boss. Oh, wait on, there's a 15% sale on somewhere else, right? So you're ready to jump off at any time and go and look at and attend to other emails. Versus when you actually get them over to the pull channel, which is the landing page, they're more likely to be focused, concentrated, and more likely to convert. So I'm a big advocate of trying to, not necessarily be minimalist, but put enough information in there to give them, to incentivize them, to whet their appetite, to get them to land on the landing page.
So one of the things,
I agree.
Yeah. So one of the things you have to measure it through, though, because if you're optimizing for clicks, it's better to go broad, like have something which has a broad appeal and not per se very specific. But if you measure it all the way through to get like the sale or the conversion or putting in a shopping cart, whatever the next step is, you might find that just driving the click shot you in the foot, right? So if you have an A and a B version, one is more specific, the other is less specific. The less specific one might get more clicks but less revenue. I've seen this time and time again, where you're definitely sending more traffic and more people seem interested, but less people actually buy. So basically it's the whole thing. But then, of course, the email, as Kath said, you have to sort of whet their appetite that they know what's coming after. It's because if they don't know enough, they'll be, maybe disappointed later on. This is also from an example from a nonprofit, where in one of the of the emails, they put like the little, the little kid that has a little fly close to the eye, the sad little kid that asks for money. If they put that inside the email, people already know, okay, they're going to ask for money. So, but if you put a chicken in there, just a chicken, like the chicken, because that's what you could buy for them. You could buy a chicken for the kid, so they could not to eat the chicken, the eggs. I mean, come on. So they put the chicken in there, only the chicken, and people didn't really understand that they were asking for money. They put the kid in there with the chicken, and then they understood it better, and the conversion was better.
Yeah. So I'm going to.
So if you're talking about chicken and egg, yeah.
I'm going to possibly. I mean, all of my findings, all of my tests and everything, kind of basically support what you were saying at the end, but not at the beginning. So if you're going to go generic in the subject line, you're going to attract a wider audience, right? But the problem is that you may attract them, and they've set their own expectations about what that email is going to contain because you've been so generic. They're going to read into it what meets their needs. And so when they open up the email, they kind of get a bit disappointed in it. Whereas if you're very specific in the subject line, you're more likely to attract the right audience and therefore meet their expectations. And then this is the part I really agree with you with Jordi, is the call to action needs to very explicitly state what the next step is. You don't want to be jumping too far, like buy now. They're not going to go buy now. They're possibly going to go and do a little bit of research, or they're going to shop around, or you know what I mean. So you kind of like
you sell $100,000 product.
Yeah, instantly. So
why buy tomorrow if you can buy now?
I think you guys are seriously agreeing, though. I think you both pretty much said the same thing, in that if you're really specific, your audience self-segments, right?
Yeah.
The people that are interested are very interested, and the people that aren't interested don't waste the time of that first interaction where you were kind of generic, and now they're in there and they're like, oh, this isn't what I wanted, and they bail.
Yeah.
Which kind of gets back to that segmentation. That's where I was kind of going with that segmentation question earlier.
There might be a different level. Yeah. Please, Christine.
Well, no, I think it's our responsibility to create non-generic emails, right? Where it's if we're not segmenting or using the data of what they're interested or having any sort of personalization as the list grows, of course, then I always say generic emails aren't invited to the party. It's like we have to have some level of feeling like they're being seen. One brand that I love and often mention, Saks does this really well. Well, they know I click on certain brands and certain products. They know my behavior because they're monitoring my clicks, no matter how scary that is. It's why email is powerful, because then they'll send me an email saying just for you at the top, and they've curated the collection of what they're sending me on the latest products based off of my previous clicks. And that is automatically going to increase engagement. That's already, I'm going to click on something because it's proven I've clicked before. So, and you can use that example across all. It doesn't just have to be an e-commerce brand. If a certain message, like Jordi's example, a certain image is already evoking a certain behavior, we can use all of those learnings through time. And that's also what makes email powerful, is every time we're sending, we should be learning. We should be gathering that data. We should be getting smarter with our messages every single time. And every email list is unique. So what's going to respond to one group of people might not be another. Although there are some tried and true actions.
Yeah.
We're gonna get to those. We're gonna get to those. I don't want you to give those away early. We are going to get to those in about 6 minutes. So Marissa has asked an interesting question, but I'm not entirely sure I understand it. So Marissa, I sent you a message. If you could just ping me back.
I think I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I know
Go
what
for
she's
it.
talking about.
But essentially, there are like, especially with like new businesses now, where they're kind of like very entrepreneurial, and they're realizing that actually the capabilities of emails is very big for their businesses, but they don't have, let's say, a HTML developer or coder. They tend to take the out of the box email template, and all of their sections within their emails is just pure images, versus a company that will have, let's say, a HTML coder, and they will have a mix of image, live text, and image, alt tags, and what have you. So I think that the question is,
I thought the live text was something like, dynamically pulled in text versus.
No.
Yeah, she
that's
said
it.
that's
No,
it.
yes, that's it,
Adiola.
Adiola.
Yeah.
Boom, Adiola wins.
Just-
Adiola wins. I'm just gonna mark that as answered so we can get rid of it. All right,
and
so,
you know what?
So Marissa wants to hear your thoughts. Now you have explained the question, and Adiola, what are your thoughts on that question?
Rudy, why do you always laugh when it's me?
No, I laugh in general about what I find funny situations, or maybe I just remember something else that happened one time. So,
you know what? My thoughts. I used to be quite archaic, like an old school African auntie, like so to say, with my thinking that very much 100% images was bad. And to be fair, when it comes to best practices, it's not actually the way you should go. But what I've actually been noticing with a lot of our clients and even companies that I've worked for is where they have had a fully image-based campaign, it doesn't actually affect the outcome in terms of their revenues or their click-throughs, as long as the images, like the file sizes, are not too heavy. It downloads in a really good time. They still have very clear CTAs, and every element of that email clicks through. They essentially do see the same results. It just now boils down to whether or not they're building emails with their customers or their subscribers in mind. So are they trying to give their subscribers the best experience? So whether or not their email now becomes optimizes itself for mobile, and whether it can flex itself for desktop, and just allowing for there to be a lot more content, for it to be legible on all different devices. It now becomes a matter of how far do you want to go to make your subscribers happy, rather than does it have an impact on the overall KPIs? Because what I've been seeing is it doesn't, although I am a stickler still for let's have a proper HTML format rather than just bunging in images, but it's preference for me.
Doesn't that sort of depend on brand? Like some brands can go with an image because that they're very image-led brands, but like, I don't know, let's say accounting software might need a few more words. I don't know, Christina, what do you think? I
mean, I think, you have to think best practices. I mean, even a brand like Burberry, I'm watching their emails all the time. They definitely have live text. And even though their images are heavily branded and their logo is, very distinctive, but they're still using system text. A lot of their software now allows you to host your fonts. So there really is no excuse to not have your full branded experience. So even though Outlook is not our friend always in that regard, might have a bone to pick with Outlook. I do think best practices for mobile scaling and everything else in between. We do have to think about the performance and the deliverability. Gmail doesn't love emails that are all text. All image based. So
it doesn't. But if your subscribers behave in a way where it doesn't seem as though it's spam, it then acts favorable. So it's. And that's why, and I agree. Like I said, I'm a stickler for best practices, but it's Rudy.
I don't know. I mean, so for me, there are two important things. One is your email should be accessible. So people who use like a screen reader or can't really see the smaller fonts, etc. If you're going to use text, you're going to put it in an image, and then it's going to become smaller on the mobile version. It's going to be very hard to read in most cases. So in that case, you also always want to have like proper normal text and not text in an image. And then you have, for instance, these fashion brands. And this year I looked very into different fashion brands and saw a lot of their emails. And these are very, very different from what you see in, for instance, B2B or like normal. They'll have these sort of glossy type, let's just scroll it down, huge hero image in the beginning, feel good type emails, which are basically just pictures, like many, many pictures where you can just go through. Like there's not even text allowed almost. It's like maybe they have a text for a link or a price or something, or go to the site, but the whole story is told in pictures, which is a different way of telling a story. But I'm not a fan to if you have a paragraph of text, that should be text. That shouldn't be inside an image.
Yeah.
So
Agreed.
There are
Please
two
go.
main reasons that my clients have told me why they do the all images, and this is as when you have to get to the root of a problem, you need to actually fully understand, right? The first one is generally because they've got a design team, and most of them are fashion brands. They've got a design team. And, as we know, fashion brands are very, very much focused on aesthetics and everything. So that's a huge design team. So they've actually got more capability within their design team than they do within their email team, right? So it's a bit of a resource issue. And therefore, the process is made much easier if they just give it to the design team, slices it up, in the email team bungs it into the email, done and dusted, right? But then that also comes down to one of the other reasons that they say is because they can't get the look and the feel that they get with the beautifully right. Now, I've proven that wrong to many of my clients on multiple instances where we have designed it so that they are almost mirror. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that but one's HTML and one is just images. There's a few little, changes that you have to make. Maybe it's not 100%, but it's really darn close. So, I say to those people who are having that issue, go and build yourself an amazing master template with as many variations of modules or pods as you possibly can. That's going to enable you to actually, deliver these beautiful, aesthetically beautiful emails, but will also help you with your resource problem because you are essentially using something that's already created, and all you're doing is putting in the text and the imagery and everything. You're not having to start from scratch and build a new email every single time. So, and that's what we do with a lot of our clients.
Go get a professional. Go get a professional email coder to do it, right? Don't rely on your web design team, or worse, your print design team.
Yes.
They're great at putting together an ad layout. They're brilliant at it, award winning.
Yes,
that's not going to work in email. So we're almost out of time. I just want to. There is one question that we kind of answered in that answer from. I'm gonna really butcher this name, and I apologize. I'm gonna go with Begum. I hope I got that right, or
Asian.
Close. Who asked about the different types of email and deliverability, and basically between Jordi and Adiola, we got the very, very definitive answer. It depends. So, but last question for the panel. Now, Jordi, this question has instructions. I want you particularly to pay attention.
Sure.
You're on an elevator or a lift if you happen to be in the UK, and you have one floor to impart your most important tip for designing for conversion. All right? So think about that for a second. One floor, you've got one tip, you got about 40 seconds.
And who else in the Is it just me in the elevator? Because
No, it's you.
what am I doing there? What's this? Was this one floor
Look,
kind of thing? Is it like
you are not a
tall
method actor.
building,
You do
or
not
where are we
need-
going? Are we going
You
down?
do not need all the background for the method. It's you and a prospect. You and a prospect.
Oh,
That's who's in the elevator.
I'm not giving any tips to that prospect.
Okay, so that's Jordan's answer. Christina, what would your answer be?
I've got a few. I believe content will be king from morning, noon, and night. That if you don't have a clear strategy for the content, then it doesn't matter what it looks like. A strong layout that's both branded and easy to navigate, and scrolling is okay. Utilizing white space, making your call to action as clear and as compelling as possible. Using imagery and typography and in very clear ways, actionable. Every bit of piece of focus should be actionable. And I believe we haven't touched on this for CTAs today, but that idea of incentivizing, having a feeling of scarcity, of urgency, of some sort of exclusivity of your offer. I think that those are all really important elements that when you're crafting both the message and the design, they should all be working together.
Okay, I'm playing the prospect here, and I'm going to hold the door and say, but wait, one last little question. On the call to action, there's this there's this trend in web design to not be quite so direct. But I tend to see in emails being direct. Book now, click here, very, kind of instructive. Do this. Whereas web tends to be softer, which is better for email.
I'm old school. I'm always going to be direct, and be as powerful and punchy as possible. And my CTAs are always super clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Adiola, you're now on the lift. What's your one tip? One floor, one tip.
Design with mobile in mind. Design for all devices, or like desktop and mobile. Don't be so linear to one or the other, because you want to create a great experience no matter where or how your subscribers are viewing your email. So always bear that in mind. It's not just about testing on desktop, but test it on mobile, test it in those different email clients, so you really get to see what your subscribers are going to be seeing. That would be my one top tip. See, short,
Excellent.
sweet.
Liked it. And with Apple's announcement last week, a lot more testing is going to be required over the next few months. Yordi, one floor, one tip.
Oh,
I like this method. I think we're going to do this for everyone next season.
Okay, so if you want your emails, I'm stretching it out here. This elevator is done very low, very slow. If you want your emails to perform better, you want the value to be clearer. So what makes the value clearer? What makes your value proposition, what people can get from that email clearer? One is that actually there is less distraction, so less things going on everywhere. If you see a lot of things going on, that's a lot of distraction.
Man, I hate slow elevators.
And the other one, to increase the value, so it's the same offer, but I'm making it easier to consume, easier to read, easier to go through, using shorter sentences, just a few lines, tuck, and then go through it. So my main elevator keyword would be I'm pressing the clarity button. Mm-hmm. Clarity for value.
Excellent. And Yordi, actually, I'm sorry, I should have taken, well, here we'd say take the piss, but that's rude in other parts of the world. I shouldn't have been so harsh on your long floor, because we did have to wait for Cass to get back. So well done filling time.
Thank you for
All
taking pisses. I don't know. I guess
Wow,
it's an
no,
expression.
No,
Everybody
we'll
has
be
to go
editing that out.
sometime.
We're gonna roll right on through that. Thank you very much, Yordi. Yordi clearly doesn't speak UK English as his first language.
I do.
Please bail
I'm
us out.
taking a piss on you.
Sorry.
That's not it either. That's really not it either. Oh, Kath, please save me.
Okay. So, sorry about my disappearance. So, my tip would be to understand that you're the director. You, as the email marketer, are the director. And even if you have designers, right, designing the initial concept for you and everything, because they're designers, and more often than not, as a designer, and I'm sure Christina will support me in this, most designers have actually been taught to design for aesthetics, not for conversions, right? But you're the director of your customer's journey. Therefore, you need to, you can take it, but then you need to be feeding back and saying, where's the hierarchy, or training them, or doing something rather. So understand that there is a difference between designing for aesthetics and designing for conversions, and there's a lovely delicate balance to be achieved between the two of them. So that's and everything that we've been talking about today really falls under that anything, so you can continue with the tips with everything that we've been saying. But that would be my tip.
Excellent tip. And it's a great place for us to wrap up. So first off, sincere apologies that my phone rang. I thought it was on silent. But thank you all. As I said, that's all we have time for today. But please let us know what your thoughts are. Everybody's been really great in the chat. We've had some really good chat today. It took us a while to get the questions going, but the chat has been off the hook, and it's been great. So let us know what you thought in the chat. Please join me in giving big thanks again to our gold speakers, Iterable and Validity, and our silver sponsors, Email Expert and RPE Origin. Yes, yay them. And, of course, our tremendous, big, huge thank you to Adiola, Christina, Yordi, and Kath for providing us with their invaluable insights and genuinely good humor. But most of all, I want to thank you all for spending your time with us today. I know that you've got other things you could be doing, and we're really happy that you could join us. As Kath alluded to, she and I will be back on the 6th of July with one of my favorite people in the whole world, Stephanie Miller, and Priya Bransfield, talking about what B2B and B2C can learn from each other. And we might throw a little NFP in there too, just to spice things up. Now, if you joined us live, please join us over now on the roundtables. When you came in, you would have seen these table-y looking things. We'll be there in just a second. Go find a table. Remember, turn on your sound and video. Be part of the conversation. Don't worry if you're, not dressed great, or you're wearing that ever more tattered hoodie. I always talk about the tattered hoodie, but we've been doing this for so long now that I'm sure your tattered hoodie is really tattered. We're not going to judge. The conversations aren't recorded. We're just there to learn from each other and to connect and have a great time. Remember, one person on the roundtables will win the Kindle version of Kath's book, which is brilliant, a great read. Not as thick as it looks in the picture. You already, don't worry. It's only like 280 pages, and so it's a weekend. It's a weekend. It's good. It's a well spent weekend. Anyway, okay. So that is that. So thank you all again for joining. We'll see you all in the roundtables. If you can't join us in the roundtables, join us again in a couple of weeks. But until then, be safe and make good choices.
Peace out.